Hey guys, welcome back. Episode 7 of our TREMEC Install. We get to do patch panel work today. It's a lot of work. If you're new, welcome. Subscribe so you can follow along because I've never done this before. It should be fun. Now I can't say I have not worked with metal. I have done that, but I have not installed the TREMEC. So this has been quite the learning experience for everyone, I hope, including myself. So today we have a lot to do, and it's going to test your patience if you're working with metal, because we have to cut out a template, we have to do some grinding, some drilling, some welding probably, painting, gluing, screwing if you're using screws, riveting if you're using rivets. I don't know what else I forgot. So kick back, relax, take some notes, ask me some questions in the comments section, hit like, and subscribe if you haven't, because it should be fun. Let's get started to where we left off last, where the transmission's in the car. We have our 3 holes, and now we can start shaping our metal, or actually coming up with a template to shape our metal. Now, if you're really new, the Silver Sport transmission kit comes with sheet metal for your patchwork, mainly for automatic transmissions, because automatic tunnels are smaller than manual tunnels. I have a manual car, and there were a couple areas that were still interfering because not all cars are built the same. You could have 2 69 GTOs next to each other and they're not going to be the same. I have different engine mounts. My engine's a lot higher than most. You name the problem, I'm sure everyone has seen it. So that's why this has turned into be a lot of work, which is a great learning experience for all. Let's get going. Now there are several ways we can go about this. We obviously have to use sheet metal. We can weld it in. Typically you don't want to do that when you already have, Dynamat everywhere. It will actually catch fire. So if you're in the beginning of your project and you haven't painted anything or Dynamated anything, then yeah, definitely weld it in. I am actually going to use rivets and seam sealer in between the 2 panels. Now the trick is you have to get this special material. It's actually used for modeling sheet metal. Yeah, it's a Kleenex box. You got me. So this is what I'm going to use to actually shape and make a template to cut out the sheet metal with. Makes it a lot faster. You can mess this up, get another one, and keep trying. You can bend it and it will keep its form. It's exactly what you want. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's going to be tedious. You have to be patient in this process, and you want to try and make it as least amount of bends as possible, because sheet metal, you don't want to get too crazy, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and spend an hour probably crafting some models, and I'll show you what I came up with. Alright guys, here's what I did. So if you guys have Dynamat, what you have to do is cut through the metal side of the Dynamat, and then do your best to scrape off the rubber sticky stuff, which is pretty nasty, frankly. And then I took my awesome sheet metal template, and I laid it over here, about 3/8 inch gap all the way around the cut. I cut too far, so this is my reminder to add some material. And when you're bending sheet metal, you have to put cut marks in, otherwise it's not going to bend, right? So I basically have cut marks in here. This is a bend seam that matches this edge. I had to have a little relief for the center console mount. This is probably going to be the toughest curve, because we can bend most of this, but then we're going to have to manipulate it with something to get creative, or maybe even add a slit here to make it easier to overlap the metal. We'll just have to play it by ear on that one. So I'm good to go. There's plenty of room underneath, and so I'm going to take this template and go ahead and cut out a piece of sheet metal and get to work. Alright guys, I don't know if you remember, but the Silver Sport transmission kit actually comes with a couple pieces of sheet metal for patch panel work. And I'm going to grab the small one, and I have my template. Just going to trace around it and use my portable bandsaw, which I think you guys have seen before, but I'll show it to you in a second. Here we go. Hey guys, here's the portable table saw I was telling you about. It's actually a DeWalt pipe cutter with a Woodward fab mount to put it in your vise to make it a portable table saw. Because I don't have room in my shop for a real legit one. Just hanging up on the wall. Awesome. Here we go. That was a little loud. All right, there we have it. Just wanted to deburr it so I don't cut my hands up. And I'm going to mark that this is the top. So here comes the challenging part, guys. Even I've worked with metal a little bit. I'm nowhere near being an expert. So I put some bend lines in. So this is where I want it to bend. Actually, this goes down. This section goes down and peels back up. And I added some relief cuts. I don't know if you can see them, because you can't put two bends in metal. You have to have a relief. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to put it in my vise. I'm going to do some hammering and see what happens. Oh, and this requires a lot of test fitting. You have to go back and forth between the car and your workbench, so you got to be patient. Here we go. Okay, so there's my rough fit. I'm gonna go test it in the car. I'm pretty sure I need more bend in here, and see how it looks. All right, let's see how we're looking. Hey, not bad actually. I can actually probably bend this by hand. Let's see. Oh yeah, so I just bent this top part down by hand. So I have a gap in here we have to fill. So I just have to bend this section down by using a hammer, probably hammer and dolly a little bit. This end over here we have to bend that way, and might have to put in more of a relief. But really not bad, the first crack at it. Cool. All right guys, we're almost there. Check it out. So I had to put a couple relief cuts, and then I drilled 1/8 inch diameter holes, because what I'm going to do is use what's called a cleco. So this is a cleco fastener. When you squeeze it, notice how these prongs come out, and they go right into the hole like this, and you release it. They're basically temporary rivets, and they'll double as the location for my rivet hole. So it's pretty cool. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and go in the car, and we're going to lay this down, and then I'm going to start drilling holes into the sheet metal behind it, and then putting our clecos in, and that will determine if we need to do any more shaping, because then we can actually shape it while it's in the car. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright guys, perfect fit. I'm going to go ahead and use the existing holes in my drilled template, kind of work my way front to rear, and add clecos as I go. Alright, cleco goes right in the hole, the matching hole, just like that, and that's how it holds it in. Pretty cool. I'll do the other one. These actually have a really good hold, and you can see where you might need to do some more bending. Alright guys, that's pretty good. So I just went around and used the existing hole as the holder for the drill bit, basically. And I can tell there's a little bit of gap here. And what I'll do is after I pull the transmission out, I can actually hammer from the back side to bring up the base sheet metal to match. And that's what I'll do. So I'll leave it, I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to go ahead and do the other 2 holes and then pull the transmission. So it'll take me probably a couple hours, but we'll be right back. Hey guys, so I figured I should show you what I did here. So here's the second hole, and I made my cardboard template out of my awesome Kleenex box, and I drew lines where I wanted some bends and some cut marks where I wanted to cut the metal, and this is what I came up with. So typically when I work with metal, I work with the largest surface and work my way out. So I bent these corners first, and the way I bent them is pretty simple. It's not complicated. You can use anything in the shop. Like I used this 4x6 with my hammer, and I just shaped it, bent it down, and then when I wanted to find this crease, I turned it over, bent that down. Now here's the fun part. So yes, it does take several back and forths in the car, but here's the a dolly I had, and I just used it. So this was flat, and I just used it on the dolly, and it made this curvature, right? Then I made my holes for the cleco fasteners. I put it in the car, and I'll go to the car right now and show you what I did next. So here it is. I did the same thing. I drilled holes through my basic template that I made with this piece, put my clecos in, and then right here there's a seam on the tunnel. And all I did was I took my hammer that has this end on it, and I just dimpled it right there, and it's a perfect fit. I did the same thing over here. There's a little indentation. I just took this side of the hammer and pressed it in, and it works. It works perfectly. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this last piece. But the most important thing is it's going to take time. You have to do several back and forth, but once you get the use of what bends metal the best, go with that trick. There's no right answer. So make it fun, create something new, and let's go to the next hole. Alright guys, a little update for you. So this one's proven to be a challenge, which is fine. This is what it's all about. I put 3 clecos in. Now I'm just going to modify. You can see there's a little bump here, a little gap, and then back in here on this corner, I know it's tough to see, it's really hard to mimic this radius, so I'm just going to hammer it in place and see what we can do here. So that fits nice, and now we'll just tackle the back side. Like that. So I was going to go around and smooth it out. There's also some spots that are too low, and I'm going to pull the transmission. We're going to look at it from the bottom and see if we can raise those portions, and there's some on the other 3 pieces, so we'll get to it. All right, transmission's out. Here's our patch first one we did. And you see this gap here? So what I'm going to do is just get my hammer and massage this closer so we can close up that gap. You know, same thing in here, same thing over here. Just going to polish it up, and then I can take these out, and then I'll just take my flat disc wheel and grind these sharp edges down. We don't want any sharp edges exposed, and then we'll take the next step, which is waterproofing, which is a whole nother discussion. Alright guys, we're almost there. Check this out. Here's all 3 pieces. Before we start talking about waterproofing, we need to look at all of our bends, because this is what I don't like to see. I don't know if you can see it, but there's an overlapping metal. So we cut a slot so we can bend the metal, and then I folded it over. The problem is I don't like to see this because moisture can accumulate. It's very hard to get paint in here. So what I'm going to do is, if you turn it over, you find your best straight edge, which is this edge here. I'm going to run my saw right through there, and that will take this piece off and leave a nice slit. And then we can talk about that. All right, back from the saw. So see, I made my cut mark, took the dog ear right off. I just went down this straight edge. I also did it on this side, and I sealed it a little bit. Now you have to make a decision on how you want this to be finalized in the car. So for example, we have to waterproof this. And what I'm going to use is POR 15, which is by far my favorite rust preventative. And if you go to this video right here, I actually go through on how to spray it with an HVLP gun. And I haven't decided if I'm going to brush it or spray it yet. But either way, I'm going to use it. I'm also going to use it on the bare edges inside the car where we made our openings. And after we do that and it's fully waterproofed, we have to decide, what do we want to use? Do we want to use seam sealer? Do you want to use a metal bond? This is like a panel bond, they call it. It's kind of expensive, but this is what the OEMs use nowadays. They don't spot weld panels together. They actually glue them. So I'm going to use this. I have some left over from the previous job. I hope it still works. If it doesn't work, I think my backup would be seam sealer. Either way, you want everything sealed. But before we get to that point, I have decided that, especially on this opening, that's a lot of seam sealer to rely on sealing that crack. I think I'm going to weld this. That'll give us some more strength. And I haven't welded in a while, so hey, what the heck. This is why this is so shiny. This is actually my weld table. So it's this table I made, it's grounded, so I can just weld right on this table. So I think I'm going to do that next. Well guys, it's been a long time since I TIG welded sheet metal, and it shows because it looks terrible. But as the saying goes, I'm a crappy welder, but I'm a fantastic grinder. So I'm going to clean these up with my grinding wheel and put them back in the car, make sure they didn't warp too much, rebend them, and then I'll get to painting the POR 15. Be right back. Alright guys, waterproofing time. Using my POR 15. Acid brush, gloves. This gets on you, it does not come off for 2 weeks. Here we go. And let's put a happy bush right in here. Yes, happy bush. I said that for you, Ryan. I hope you're listening. Guys, look at these things. Woo! That's POR 15. I don't know if I should put these in the car. I feel like hanging them up on the wall, like artwork. It's amazing how much work you put into these things, and no one's gonna see it except you guys. So we're gonna go ahead and jump in the car and get my tools together, because we're gonna need our panel bond. Hopefully that works, or seam sealer and my rivets. And we should be able to bust it out real quick here. Be right back. Alright guys, here we go. So here's our patch panel, and I'm going to show you a little pro trick if you want to keep the mess down. Is you take some masking tape before you start putting any caulk down or anything, and you make a just a mask line. I don't really care, I'm just showing you how this works. So Typically, if you want to keep it nice and neat, you would mask all the way around. And then we're going to lay down our panel bond, which is actually more like a caulking gun. So we're going to lay it down, a nice bead. We're going to put this over it. I'm going to rivet it down, and then we're going to peel the tape off, and it will leave a nice edge right there. I don't really care. I'm just showing this for demonstration purposes. So there we go. Okay, time for our rivets. And these are aluminum. Be very careful if you pick a steel rivet, you're going to have to repaint them. So I'm going to put the first top 3 down first. Oh yeah, that is super tight right there. And I didn't get a lot squeezing out of the bottom. See that? If we did get a lot, for example, why don't I just throw some more in there? Like so. You take your finger with a glove on and you can smooth it down, and then take the tape off, and you have a nice line. So that's exactly how you're supposed to caulk your toilets, ladies and gentlemen. So next time you do your toilets, do that around the bottom of your toilet. Put the caulk in, take the tape up, you're done. That's how you do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other panels. I'm also going to go under the car after I do the panels and put more sealer in if I need to. That's how it's done. Be right back. Alright guys, patch panels are done. They look awesome. Unfortunately, we have to cover them up and no one's going to see them. Oh man, I know I got carried away. I probably didn't have to do any welding. I probably didn't have to use rivets. You could use screws. It's not a big deal. And the next step here is actually we need to discuss the wire harness. There are actually 2 wire harnesses. So in the next episode, we'll do that. So subscribe so you don't miss it. The 2 switches I'm talking about is a reverse light switch and a neutral switch. The neutral switch is optional. And I don't even know if I'm going to run it yet. However, I am going to run the wires. So I'm not going to put the carpet down until we run all the wires so they can go under the carpet, up underneath the dashboard, so they're there should I opt to use them. Really easy, right? So we just have to do that next episode. Then put the clutch back in, put the bell housing on, and measure for our hydraulic throwout bearing, which should be another fun project. So anyway, thanks for hanging out. I know it's been a long one. I hope you learned something. Hit like, and you know the drill. Build them fast and drive them faster. See ya.